When I start the FlutterFlow project, I want to prototype as soon as possible to confirm the idea is actually buildable. Claude has become an indispensable part of that workflow. And so today I want to do a walkthrough on how to use Claude Code correctly to genuinely accelerate your FlutterFlow development. Yes, Claude can scaffold an entire app, but once you're fixing bugs or adding real features, FlutterFlow is where you want to be. Used together, they're a very effective combo. So in this video, I'll share the key tips I rely on to build FlutterFlow apps quickly and with fewer dead ends. Let's get started. Now, there's lots of things that you can use Claude Code to help you build amazing FlutterFlow apps quickly and easily. But one of the things that I definitely want to do first when I'm building a FlutterFlow app, especially if I'm using some third-party dependencies, third-party plugins, third-party extensions, stuff like that, is I want to make sure that this extension actually works and I can use it with my app. And that used to be fairly time consuming. And now you can do it very, very quickly and easily. Let me show you how this works. So here I am in my kind of blank FlutterFlow canvas, and I'm looking to build a new type of app. And so I was browsing around and I see some cool extensions on pop.dev. Now, pop.dev is a great site, but like you probably already know that there's lots of awesome extensions and lots of not so awesome extensions. And there are extensions in the middle that kind of work, kind of don't work, etc., etc. Now, this extension is fairly popular, so that means it should work, but we still want to test it out. We still want to make sure it works, because if we're building a whole app that's based on this extension, or this extension plays a big role in our app, we want to make sure this extension works, okay? And so what I'd like to do typically is I'd like to test it out first in my app to make sure it works. And you can easily do that with Claude. And so I'm going to jump into my Claude here, right? So here's my Claude all set up, all running in kind of this, just an open directory. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, build me a scaffold app using this extension here, using this extension, okay? Using this extension, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and copy it. Just make it a one-page, super simple app. Okay, that's it. We just want to create a simple app just to see if it works. Okay, and then if it works, then we can build a more complex app in FlutterFlow. Okay, so now Claude is going to proceed. I'm going to go ahead and allow it to do it. I'm going to let it run. All right, so it inserted that extension over there, this HTML editor enhanced. Okay, now it's using another version. That's fine. We'll work on that a little later. Okay, let's just see if it works at all. Okay, now it tells me done. I've created a simple Flutter app with this extension, etc. And now we can just say, hey, run the app, run the app. And so here we want to just quickly test if this extension works, okay? Okay, and so this is our app, right? And as you can see, it looks like it's working just fine. At least it loads. And it shows us a little demo, so I can select it. I can click over here, I guess. Okay, and now you have it, okay? So we're seeing functionality. And well, this is a great step, because I can't tell you how many times I've used an extension that I wanted to use its functionality in my app, and that extension did not work as expected. Now, one thing I want to change is I wanted to ask to use this version, okay? Go ahead, change the version to the latest, okay? And so it's going to do that. It's going to change the dependencies, the file that fetches these dependencies, and it's going to rerun our app just to see if it works. And here's our app right here, okay? And I'm assuming it uses this new extension, and it does, because it updated this popspec.yaml. You can see this update here, okay? And so there you have it, right? So you can set links. Really cool extension, by the way. I can put, let's say I set a link to google.com right here, and now we have this google.com link to itself, essentially, okay? And so here you can go back and you can actually exit Claude, and you can see your new app. You can see the app that was created, okay? Okay, so here I am, and this is the app. Okay, so this is the app that was created. So fully functioning Flutter app is just one page, right? So if you go into lib, You can see it's just main Dart, right? It's just the main file. There's no other pages, right? That's exactly what we want. We don't want it to build a complex app. We wanted to build a simple app that tests that extension, okay? Now, let's go back to Claude here and let's get it to test out this extension. This extension is a little bit more involved. It's a very popular extension. Should work, but we never know, right? So if you want to use this extension and you're building your app, you want to test it first. And so I'm going to do the same thing. Build a super simple one-page Flutter app that shows the functionality of this extension. Shows the functionality of this extension. Okay? And that's it. Okay, the simpler the better, because with Claude, the more complex you get, the more chance you're going to be having issues. Okay, I'm going to accept all the changes. Now look at this, it's creating the page. So here it says perfect, the app is now running. You have a simple Flutter app that demonstrates the Pro Image Editor functionality. Here's what the app includes, etc., etc. And this is the app right here. So you can edit random image from the web. So you can click over here. We have a random image. You can flip. You can change the ratio. You can get out pro image features, right? So lots of cool stuff, right? Look at this. So not only do you know that this works, right? But you can also test out the features in real time, right? Yourself, just to see. Because a lot of these widgets, they don't have like a page where you can test out features. So here you can test things out, right? And you can get more ideas as to what kind of app you're going to be building, which is another, hidden benefit, right? Maybe you wanted to build an app that does filtering, and you look at all these filters and you're like, wow, I can build an app that does, this kind of filter, or maybe an app that does blurring. Look at this. You can blur. Look at that. Really cool. So now you're getting ideas for a different kind of app. At least that's how my brain works. Right? You have this emojis here, right? Look at that. You can drag and drop. So you can build like, some kind of like an image editing, like a Photoshop Lite. You can paint. Look at that. So now you know that not only it exists, but it actually works. It's actually real. Very, very important. Now, we're not done yet, because, testing this out as a standalone app is nice and all. But remember, we're building a FlutterFlow app, right? We have our app open here. And so we can ask Claude to tell us how to integrate correctly this type of plugin, this type of extension with our FlutterFlow app. And so I'm going to jump back into Claude and I'm going to say, tell me, how do I integrate this extension into my FlutterFlow app? Okay, what files do I need to change? To change with what? And here, I just wanted to explain. I don't want it to start coding, so I'm going to switch over to plan mode, okay? And I'm going to have it explain to me, now that it figured out how it works, how do I integrate it with my app, okay? And this is really, really nice, okay? Because now you have a proof of concept, but you're going to get, step-by-step instructions on how to integrate this app, this extension into the app that you're building in FlutterFlow. Okay, so here we go. Look at this. To integrate, you want to add this dependency. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's see if this works. Let's do it together. So I'm going to go over here and our dependencies, project dependencies. I'm going to add custom this. I'm going to add that there. Looks good. Next, we want to FlutterFlow does not natively. You'll need to create a custom widget. That's why we're here. So it has a custom widget for us. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and copy this. So that's what? Option A, custom widget, custom action approach. So let's do a custom widget. I think custom widget makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I'm going to come back to custom code, add this custom widget, and I'm going to go ahead and paste all of this. Looks good. Looks like everything is there. What do we call it? So this needs to match. And what are the arguments, right? So image URL and on image editor, right? So image URL is a string and this is a callback, okay? So here's where you kind of have to be careful, right? Because it may not be the right format, but that's easy, okay? So I'm going to add a parameter over here. And I'm going to call it this image URL, right? Because they need to match image URL. It's not nullable. And then it wants to do this function. So it's going to have an issue with this. It's going to have an issue. This is an edited image, right? So this is fairly complex, okay? Because now we need to have this special type. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to comment that out. I'm going to comment that out on image editor because yeah, it's a little complex with bytes and stuff. I mean, you can do it, but it's just a little bit more involved. Okay, so I'm just gonna comment all of that out. Let's go ahead and save that. Let's go ahead and do that. Now we are getting this error over here, but do not worry about that because it will still work. And so the next thing that we want to do is we want to show this widget here. Okay, so I'm going to click over here and I'm going to say widget image editing test. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go ahead and get our custom widgets right here. And it needs some parameters. Let's do some width and height. And let's do an image URL of what we want to edit. Here's an image that we can use. And now what we can do is we can actually run this app on our computer. Okay. And so for that, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to do this. And I'm going to run this command. That's going to download it, come over here. And now we can run this app. Okay. We got all the dependencies, no issues there. And now we can do Flutter run. And so here's our app running in a Chrome browser and it says edit image. So we can click over here and guess what? This is the image that I pulled, that I initialized the widget, and now we can hopefully edit it, right? Look at that. There you go. Now we have this, we can crop, we can flip, we can do all of that. We have this custom widget and yeah, it's telling us that there's an error running this command, but don't worry about that, right? It's absolutely fine. Now, this is a very, very simple example. Okay, we even have a callback and when the user finished editing the image, right? So if you want to save the image, send it somewhere, right? If you want to build a more complex app. But remember, this is just a simple demo. There's probably more things that you can do, and you can come over here and kind of read documentation. But from what I see, this is a very, very, comprehensive extension that you can use when you're building any kind of image editing based apps. Okay. And so that's the first thing that I like to do when I'm building an app and I want to use some third-party plugin extension, because there has been many times in my experience where I like some extension. I try using it, but it doesn't work, right? It hasn't been maintained. It has bugs, right? These are open source, okay? So this is a quick way just to have a proof of concept to show you that it works. Now, of course, being able to test external widgets is going to be part of a bigger app, right? You're never going to be building a single page app that just displays some test data. And so right now, I want to show you the flow that I go through when it comes to building more complex apps, right? Typically the apps that you're probably going to be building in the first place. Now, let's say we want to build an Airbnb for pets. So how can Claude help us build out this app? Well, I have here in FlutterFlow the start of this app, right? I have my first page. I'm ready to build this app out, but there's lots of moving pieces. There's lots of things to do, right? Airbnb wasn't built in a day. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to jump back into Claude and we want to ask Claude for some advice, right? We want to tell Claude, hey, I'm building this Airbnb for pets. What are some issues I'm going to have? What are some architecture decisions, stuff like that, okay? So I'm going to say I'm planning on building an Airbnb for pets in FlutterFlow. Can you come up with an architecture on how this app should be built, including some limitations that we might need to address and some complex parts to keep in mind? Give me a rough time frame of how long it might take me to build out this app. And let's see what Claude says. So this is a general kind of feeler out, right? Just an architecture, the database, stuff like that. And we can, give more information to Claude as it's spitting out some answers. Okay, there we have it. So core features and user types, pet owners, pet hosts. Okay, perfect database schema, users, pets, listings, bookings, reviews. So messages, okay. So key screens flow, landing auth, user type selection, pet owner, pet host, all of this. FlutterFlow limitations, right? Payment processing, complex search filtering, right? Algolia integration, or custom Firebase functions, right? This is something we might come back to. Real-time features, calendar management, background processing, map customization. Okay, this is really good, right? This is awesome because when I'm building a complex app, I want to know not what's easy to build, but what's actually going to be hard to build. What's going to be a pain in the butt to build. That's what I'm thinking about because that's where you're going to be spending the bulk of your time, not like creating these pages, but where is the gotcha, right? Because if there's no gotcha, you're building a super simple app. There's always going to be gotchas. So real-time features, calendar, background processing, etc., etc. So this is really good, really good. So these are some things that you may have thought about, or these could be some things that you may not have thought about. And it also gives us team recommendations. Solo 6 to 8 months for full app. Wow. I think we can do it a lot faster. Now, because it has given us our Supabase schema, this would be a good time to actually implement it, right? Put it into practice. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into Supabase and I'm going to create a new project. So I'm going to say this is Airbnb Pets. I'm going to just generate a passport right here. We're going to create a new project. Okay. All right. So now has been deployed already. Let me see. Yeah, it's already done. Wow, that was fast. Usually it takes a while. Okay. So this is done. And now what we can do is we can actually have Claude create the schema for us using something called MCP. And what is MCP? Very, very simple. MCP is a way for Claude to access external systems. That's all it is, right? So, all of these providers like Supabase, Twilio, Airtable, they create these interfaces, and that's called an MCP server that Claude can talk to and understand how to do stuff in those systems, right? Because Claude, it knows how to tell you like your app architecture, but it doesn't know how to create a table in a database because it doesn't have access to that data, right? So that's a way for us to give Claude access to this data, okay? And we can do all of that from Claude. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to type MCP, and Claude is going to say no MCP servers configured. And we're going to say configure a Supabase MCP server. Okay? And it's going to figure out how to do it, and it's going to do everything. The only thing we need to do is give it permission, right, in the form of API keys. So I'm going to say yes. And so here I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type Supabase MCP this. I'm going to go ahead and give this to Claude, configure this, okay, so that it understands what we're trying to do. Okay, so it's configuring the server right here. I'm going to say yes. Okay, so now it's telling us I've set up the Supabase MCP config file. Now you need to get your Supabase credentials. And it's telling me that I need the reference ID and the access token. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead to my Supabase instance, and I'm going to go into my project settings. This is my project ID, and then it also needs my access token. And you can come over here and account preferences, access tokens. And I can generate a new token. You can just give it a name, Claude MCP. Okay, here's my token. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to say token. Okay, and it's going to configure this MCP server with our Supabase project credentials. See how it's changing all this stuff for us, all the settings. All right, your Supabase MCP server is now configured. Restart Claude desktop for the changes to be in effect. So this should be also, okay, so now it's telling us the Supabase MCP server we configured is for Claude desktop app, okay? Not Claude CLI. So it's going to import it. Thankfully, it figured that out. All right, so now we have access to our Supabase database for your pet Airbnb app. The MCP server is connected with it. Okay, so now if I type MCP, we see Supabase there, but this one is a read-only, right? You can see read-only, okay? And so this is good for getting information, but we still need to create all the tables and stuff like that. So I'm going to say change the MCP, Supabase MCP to be read write. Okay, so it's going to change the config hopefully, and we'll be able to make it read write. Okay, and so now if we type MCP, we can see that we are connected to Supabase over here, which means that Claude has full access to our Supabase. It can read and write and do all that. So now let's go ahead and have it create a simple schema. So I'm building an Airbnb for pets. Can you show me a simple Supabase schema that we can use in our app? I'm gonna do in plan mode here, and let's see what it comes up with. Okay, so it actually went ahead and showed me a SQL. Okay, I wanted the diagrams, but that's what that's how it inferred schema, right? So profiles, pets. This is good. This is linked to that table. This is good. Pets, listings, listing photos, bookings, booking pets, reviews, messages. So it's fairly, it's fairly comprehensive. And so if you don't want it to be as comprehensive, you need to tell Claude specifically what kind of tables you need. And so what I'm going to do is, so this is the Claude, I'll set up the tables, all of this. And so now, looks like it'll be able to do it, right? Because we have MCP server connected. So I'm going to do auto accept, and let's see if it's able to do it directly. Okay, now let's jump back into our Supabase and let's see what's happening here. So if I go back here, our tables, and we have all of these tables. Look at this. It figured out that we have MCP connected and we have all of this. Look at this. And if we go into profiles, we have this thing linked to auth users, which is exactly how I do it. So let's let it finish everything it needs to do, but because it's also creating RLS policies and all of that. Sometimes you have to tell it to do it. Other times you do not. So let it finish doing what it needs to do. And we can actually select the table and go to RLS policies, right? So here there's no RLS policies. Some have RLS policies, some do not. Guests can create bookings, users can update. Okay, so this is really nice. All right, schema implementation complete. All of this security, performance. It also created TypeScript types, which we do not need because we're not building a TypeScript JavaScript app, okay? But it's a nice touch, I guess. Okay. And the next thing that I typically like to do is I like to have it to have it create sample data, which is also very helpful. Create sample data in our DB schema, 3 records per row. And that way, we at least have something to display in the app once we start building the app and pulling the data. Okay. This is something that I do all the time. And I think it's very, very important that you do it because that way you can see if your app is working with some sample fake data. All right, and there we have it, sample data summary. We have all of this. We have some sample users. And if I go over here, we have pets. We have 3 pets. We have 3 listings. We have listing photos, favorites. Excellent, right? Everything that you need to start building your app without needing to kind of have real users enter this data. Now, the next thing that you can do is you can ask Claude to help you out when it comes to using third-party widgets, third-party extensions, stuff that you can find on pop.dev. And looking at this app, one extension that we definitely want to use, one custom widget is a calendar, right? When it comes to booking, right, you select your dates, you can see if it's booked or not, stuff like that. And so I can come back over here and I can say something like this. I need to use a powerful calendar that displays whether a certain day is booked or not for a specific listing. What kind of extensions, widgets do we need to use in our app? Check on pop.dev. Okay, plan mode. Let's see what it comes up with. And it's going to research pop.dev and tell us, hopefully, some really good options that we can use in our app. Okay. I'll help you research calendar solutions displaying booking availability. Okay. And let's see what it comes up with. All right. So this is what it came up with. It actually wrote a mini report, top recommendation booking calendar, right? Why it's perfect for your app, key features, table calendar, this calendar. And it created like a little table to explain to us why this option is better than the other options, right? Even has a little bit of integration. Right now it wants to code. We're not going to be coding that, at least not this time. That's probably a topic for another video. And one other thing that I want to ask it, are there other extensions, custom widgets that we can use? Are there other custom widgets, extensions besides calendar that we might use instead of reinventing the wheel? And it's going to do the same thing. It's going to go over on pub.dev, maybe research some other places and tell us. And that's really good because that is something that I do manually. And now we can do that. We can automate that. And so let's see what it comes up with. So it's researching image pickers, gallery packages for pet photos, which is brilliant, right? That's exactly what we need. And that is something I didn't even think about, right? That is something I'll think about later. And we can cover all of these bases right now, like I showed in the beginning of the video, when it comes to testing these packages, right? We can test all of this out, decide what we want to use, and start building the app. That is a much, much better approach. Okay, so I'm going to cancel over here. It's not important. And last but definitely not least, one other thing that I like to do is I like to test my integrations when it comes to integrating with other systems. So like Twilio, Stripe, Airtable, what have you. And you can easily do this with Claude, okay? And so as an example, let's say you're trying to integrate with a third-party site, right? Maybe Stripe for booking or what have you. What you typically want to do is you want to let Claude know about this API. So I'm using this RESTful API, which is just a sample API just for testing. And so I'm going to give this to Claude, and I'm just going to say test out or list the endpoints of this API. Okay, and let's see what it's able to do, because that's typically how you're going to be doing it, right? You need to list the endpoints and then test each endpoint. So it's gonna grab this page, gonna download it, learn more about it, and see what happens. And there we go, RESTful API dev, complete endpoints, etc., etc. And so now what we can do is we can ask Claude to make an API request, you know, whether getting data, writing data, etc., etc. So let's say we wanna push an object, execute a post objects with a dummy object and show us the response. Okay, and let's see if it's able to do it. Okay, so it's sending a sample request, pet boarding reservation, right, to this thing, and this is what it got back, right? Perfect. The post request was successful. This is the response. Okay, and so now we can execute like a get for this ID. Now execute a get. Now execute a get request for this ID. Okay, just to test out the API, because if it works, we can, you know, write code with it, right? We can write, you know, a custom action. We can use this in our app. We can have a widget use it, etc., etc., etc. So successfully retrieve the object with ID, etc. And I just tested 2 endpoints. We can keep testing more endpoints, right? Depending on how many places you are interacting with. And all of this was done before we even started to build this app. That is how cool it is. We have all of these extra pieces done, and now all we need to do is drag and drop and, you know, connect the pieces. That's all we need to do. We know what's working, we know what's not working, and now all we are doing is this, you know, deterministic stuff that we can guarantee is going to work, which is this FlutterFlow piece of the equation. And so that's how I use Claude Code to help me, you know, accelerate my FlutterFlow development, especially when it comes to building complex production ready apps. All right, guys. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Join our amazing Patreon community via the first link in the description below, because that's where you're going to gain access to all our apps, all our resources. I'm going to be making the prompts that I used in this video available there as well, so that you guys can review it, test it out. And above all that, when you join our amazing Patreon community, you're going to be supporting this channel and supporting my work. So let me know what you guys think in the description below the video, and I'll see you guys in the next video.